It's really important to understand what's happening in your life, to see the reality of what you're going through. If you don't, you'll end up living reactively, constantly trying to feel okay without really knowing why you don't feel okay in the first place. Understanding brings clarity and control, while reacting leaves you stuck in confusion. Think about this. Most people know that when good things happen outside, they feel better inside. If bad things happen, they feel worse. Even when something they want doesn't happen, it makes them upset. This is something everyone experiences. It's such a deep truth, but most of us never stop to question it. We just accept it as normal and don't really pay attention to what's going on. Why is it that the outside world, the events, situations, and things happening around you, has such a strong impact on how you feel inside? Why do we let what's happening out there determine how we're doing in here, inside our minds and hearts? For someone who has mastered themselves, someone who is truly enlightened, this doesn't happen. The outside world is still there. They interact with it, but it doesn't control how they feel on the inside. Here's a bold idea to think about. There's no real reason why the outside should affect your inner state. Let me explain. When you close your eyes and go to sleep, the outside world fades away. It's no longer in focus. What you're left with is your inner world, your thoughts, emotions, and consciousness. So, if the outside can disappear like that when you're asleep, why does it have so much power over you when you're awake? The truth is, most of us are trained to fix the outside to feel better inside. Even spiritual teachers and life coaches often focus on this. They'll tell you to change your relationships, move to a new place, set goals, achieve success, and so on, all to improve how you feel. But all of these solutions are about changing the outside world. Now, here's the real secret. The outside doesn't actually have to affect your inside. In fact, the vast majority of what happens outside, 99.9% of it, doesn't impact you at all. Think about it. You drive past cars and people every day. Does it change how you feel inside? Stars explode in the universe, galaxies collide, and Saturn's rings are fading. Does any of that affect your mood? No, it doesn't. The universe is massive and full of events far beyond our understanding. You can see it through telescopes or marvel at incredible images from space. Yet none of it changes how you feel inside. So, why do we let small, everyday events, like a bad conversation, a missed opportunity, or a difficult situation, have so much power over us? The truth is, we don't have to let the outside control us. Once you realize this, you can begin to take charge of your inner world. You can decide how you feel, no matter what's happening around you. That's real freedom. Why are you so affected by what's happening around you? And not just everywhere in the world. There are countless events in places like China, Russia, and beyond that don't faze you at all. Yet, the things right in front of you, the ones you experience up close, have such a strong hold on your emotions. Why is that? To really answer that, you have to look at your ego and what's happening in your mind. The truth is, this internal mechanism, this way your mind processes the world, is so strong, so powerful, that most people never break free from it. They don't understand how it works. And because of that, they rarely experience true peace or well-being. But here's the thing. It is possible to wake up in the morning and feel completely free. Imagine starting your day with no anxiety, no worry, no fear. Instead, you open your eyes and think, here I am. I wonder what today will bring. And no matter what happens, you know deep down you'll handle it. You'll be okay. There could be challenges, surprises, or joys waiting outside. But inside, you feel the same. You feel peace. You feel love. You feel compassion. You feel like yourself, untouched by whatever happens. So, why does the outside affect the inside? Here's the first truth. You are the one doing it. No one else. Not your parents. Not God. Not life itself. It's you. Picture yourself in a perfect state. A state of total joy, love, and wonder. Every moment feels magical. You're in awe of everything around you. The beauty of flowers, the cycles of life and death, the vastness of existence. You're amazed by it all, seeing life as a miraculous, endless experience. This state is often described as living in the Garden of Eden, a place where everything is fascinating and nothing disturbs your inner peace. Imagine being there. You're still experiencing life, but nothing bothers you. You're fully present, simply enjoying the experience. But then something happens. A small resistance creeps in. Maybe it's something as simple as seeing a rattlesnake. You're safe, but you think, I didn't like that. This tiny thought, I didn't like that, introduces a new layer to your experience. Instead of simply living in the moment, you start judging it. This is the beginning of resistance. It's the moment you stop experiencing life as it is and start deciding how you feel about it. It's not the snake that disturbs you. It's your reaction to it. Let's bring this closer to home. Imagine someone gives you a hug. If you're open and receptive, it's a beautiful moment. But if you're closed off or resistant, it might feel uncomfortable, even threatening. The same action, a hug, can create completely different feelings inside you, depending on how you receive it. This resistance is what causes the outside world to affect your inner peace. It's not the events themselves. It's how you process and judge them. Now, here's the thing. You're not even truly seeing the world as it is. You think you're looking at life through your eyes, but that's not exactly true. Science tells us that when you see something, you're really interpreting light that bounces off objects. Light rays or photons hit the objects around you, like my body. Some photons bounce off and travel back to your eyes, while others pass through or miss entirely. The ones that bounce back create the image your brain interprets as me. Without this reflection, I'd be invisible to you. Take the air, for example. It's made of molecules, just like my body, but light passes through it instead of bouncing back. That's why you don't see the air, even though it's right in front of you. This process shows that what you think you're seeing is just a reflection. It's not the thing itself. It's how your senses and mind interpret the light and signals. So, when you feel affected by the outside world, it's not even the actual world that's impacting you. It's your mind's interpretation of it. Understanding this is the key to freedom. Once you see how your mind creates these reactions, you can start to let go of resistance and experience life as it truly is, peaceful, joyful, and full of wonder. When light hits an object, like my body, it bounces back if it can't pass through. That reflected light travels to your eyes, which are sensitive to light. Your eyes have special receptors that get stimulated when light, photons, hits them. This triggers your nervous system, which acts like a messenger carrying that information to your brain. Here's where it gets interesting. Your brain doesn't just see the light. It processes the information, converting it into signals your mind can interpret. Think of it like how a computer works. Data gets sent back and forth, digitized, and translated into something you can understand. In this case, the light bouncing off me, becomes the image of me you see. But here's the big thing. You're not actually looking at the world directly. You're not looking through your eyes. Instead, you, the consciousness, are inside, interpreting what your eyes and brain send to you. It's like sitting in front of a computer. You're not in the world of the internet. You're just viewing what the computer shows you. Your brain is part of this process, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. It's a physical organ made up of neurons that process signals from your senses: sight, sound, touch, and so on. But beyond the brain is something deeper. The mind. The mind isn't physical. It's more like a field of energy, a higher vibration. The brain sends signals to the mind, and the mind creates the experience you perceive. This exchange between brain and mind is what allows you to see the world, not as it is, but as your mind interprets it. Want proof? Close your eyes and imagine something, like a boat. You can see it in your mind, even though your eyes aren't looking at anything. That's not your brain doing the work. It's your mind. Your dreams work the same way. They aren't triggered by light or your nervous system. They're created entirely by your mind. So how does this all connect to the outside world? Everything you see out there is energy. Light bounces off objects, enters your nervous system, stimulates your brain, and gets interpreted by your mind. That's the process. Your mind works in a similar way. The world outside isn't directly coming into you. Instead, light and energy are picked up by your senses, processed by your brain, and then rendered into the images, sounds, and feelings you experience in your mind. Now, here's something even deeper. Yogis and spiritual teachings explain that we're made up of layers, or koshas. These layers go from the physical body to higher levels of energy and consciousness. The physical body is the lowest layer, followed by the energy body, like emotions, the mental body, your thoughts, and higher levels of pure bliss or ecstasy. But even beyond these layers, there's something greater. You're not just your body, your mind, or your emotions. You're the consciousness experiencing all of it. When you start to see the world this way, you understand something profound. The outside world is just energy, reflected and interpreted by your mind. It's like watching that ball game on TV. You're not actually there, but the experience feels real. Realizing this helps you understand who you truly are, a being of consciousness, separate from the world outside. And that understanding is both beautiful and freeing. Let's take this step by step and make it clearer. Who are you? You're not your body, your thoughts, or even the world you think you're seeing. You are the one who observes it all, the seer, the witness, the consciousness. Right now, you're experiencing the world through your senses. But what you think you're seeing isn't happening out there. It's happening inside you. Here's how it works. Light from the world outside hits your eyes, triggering your optical system. Sounds hit your ears, stimulating your auditory system. All these signals are processed by your nervous system and sent to your brain, where your mind takes over. Your mind creates an image, a picture, or a sound, based on the data it receives. You, the consciousness, are sitting inside, watching everything being rendered by your mind. But here's the surprising part. You've never actually seen the world directly. Isn't that wild? You've only ever seen what your mind creates based on the signals it receives. You're not looking out there. You're looking at something inside your mind, like watching a movie on a screen. Now, why don't we truly see what's in front of us? because our minds are rarely empty. Before anything reaches your consciousness, it passes through your mind. And your mind is full of opinions, judgments, and past experiences. Let's say you meet someone who reminds you of your mother. Suddenly, your feelings about your mother, whether they're good or bad, start coloring how you see this person. Instead of seeing them as they are, you see them through the filter of your own mind. Maybe you think, she looks like my mum. I love my mum, so I like her. Or she reminds me of my mum, and I don't like my mum, so I don't like her. Everything you see, hear, or experience gets tinged by what's already inside your mind. Your preferences, dislikes, memories, and emotions shape how you perceive the world. Rarely do we experience life directly as it is. This filtering process happens because what enters through your senses must pass through the conscious and subconscious mind. So, what you see isn't the truth of the outside world. It's a version of the world shaped by your own inner experiences. Now, imagine this. Just for a moment, realize that you're not actually looking at me or anyone out here. What you're seeing is being rendered inside your mind. It's like dreaming. In a dream, the entire experience happens inside you without any outside world. The only difference here is that in waking life, the mind is stimulated by the outside world. But the process is the same. You're sitting inside yourself looking at what your mind shows you. Science backs this up. Scientists might say it's just your brain processing patterns. But even they agree. It's all happening inside. You're not looking at the outside world. You're experiencing the inside version of it. This is a big shift in perspective, and it's important to understand. Once you realize you're not truly looking out there, you begin to understand how deeply your mind shapes your reality. Here's another fascinating thing. Not only do you see with your mind, but you feel with it too. Think about this. No one has ever actually touched you. Why? Because everything is made of atoms, and atoms have electrons on their outer edges. Electrons have a negative charge, and so do the electrons in other objects. When two objects come close, like your hand and someone else's, they don't actually touch. Instead, the electrons repel each other, creating the sensation of touch. So, when you feel something or someone, you're not physically touching them. What you're feeling is the interaction between the atoms in your hand and the atoms in the other object. Your nervous system picks up on that interaction and sends signals to your brain, which your mind then interprets as touch. Everything, what you see, hear, feel, and experience is happening within you, not outside you. This is an incredible realization. It shows how much of what we think is out there is actually shaped by what's going on in here. When you understand this, you start to see life differently. You begin to notice how your own mind colors your experience and how freeing it can be to let go of those filters. You are the seer, the one who observes. And with that awareness, you can start to experience life as it truly is, not as your mind makes it appear. When you bring two negative poles of a magnet close together, they push away from each other. That's called repulsion. Now, think about when you touch something. What are you really feeling? Are your fingers actually touching the object? Number. Your body, see, like everything else, is made up of atoms. The outer layer of atoms has electrons, and electrons have a negative charge. When the electrons in your finger get close to the electrons in something else, they repel each other, just like the negative poles of a magnet. That's what you're feeling, the force of repulsion. It pushes against your skin, and this triggers the nerves in your body. Those nerves send signals to your brain, and your mind interprets those signals as touch. So, technically, no one has ever actually touched you. Not your friend, not your partner, not anyone. It's just the forces between atoms that your body feels. I used to tell my students, you've never touched your boyfriend or girlfriend. Don't worry, no one's ever really touched you. It's all just sensations being processed by your nervous system. The same thing happens with everything you experience through your senses. Whether it's touch, sight, sound, or smell, it's all just signals being passed back to your brain and interpreted by your mind. You, the consciousness, are sitting inside, observing all of this. That's why being a witness to life is the most natural thing in the world. You are in here, watching everything that comes in through your senses. But then, something happens. Imagine you're in a beautiful garden, like the Garden of Eden. Everything is amazing. The colors, the shapes, the sounds, the variety of life. Every moment is fresh, new, and exciting. It's like Earth is one big Disney world, full of wonders. How could anyone get bored in a place like this? Now, here's where things change. At some point, whether it's Adam, Eve, or someone else, a thought arises. I don't want to experience this. Maybe it's a snake that scares you, or a sound that feels unpleasant. Suddenly, you resist. Resistance is simply saying, I don't like this. I don't want to feel this. But think about it. Feelings are just like musical notes. Some are high, some are low. Some create harmony, and others create discord. They're all part of the music. But when you decide you don't like certain notes, certain experiences, you resist them. How do you resist? You try to push the experience away, even though it's already happened. You can't change the event. It's done. But you try to push away the energy of it. It's like you have invisible hands inside, hands of willpower, that try to shove the feeling or memory out. Here's the tricky part. The experience is already in you. You wouldn't be resisting it if you hadn't already felt it. By resisting, you're reacting to something that's already passed. Instead of letting it flow through you, you hold onto it by pushing against it. This is where resistance begins. It's the moment you decide, I don't want to feel this, even though the feeling is already there. And that's the root of much of our inner struggle, trying to fight against what has already been experienced, instead of just letting it move through us. Understanding this can change how you see life. Instead of resisting the moments you don't like, you can choose to let them pass, just like the wind. When you stop resisting, you free yourself to fully experience life as it is, a beautiful, ever-changing flow of moments. When something happens in your life, an event, it comes into your system. It passes through your energy, your senses, and your nervous system. That experience doesn't stop there. It reaches your brain, gets processed, and becomes something your mind and heart feel. You might feel emotions about it, thoughts about it, or even physical sensations. Now, here's the key part. You can choose to push that experience away. And we all do this. Maybe someone says something that upsets you. Or maybe they don't say something you hoped they would. It happens all the time. Instead of letting the event fully touch you and flow through you, you resist it and push it down. But where does it go? Think about it. The event already happened. It stimulated your senses. You saw it, heard it, or felt it. Your brain processed it, and your mind created an interpretation of it. If you're still dealing with it emotionally, it means you didn't let it flow through. Instead, you held on to it. Here's what should have happened. That event should have come all the way in and touched you deeply. It should have reached the depth of your being. Have you ever had a moment where something beautiful, like a sunset or a piece of music, moved you so deeply that you felt like it touched your soul? Maybe you even said, "That touched me to the depth of my being." That's what it feels like when you let an experience flow all the way through you without resistance. It's heavenly, isn't it? It feels pure and meaningful. Life was designed to be experienced like that, all of it. Every moment, every feeling, every experience is meant to flow through you and touch you deeply. But here's what happens when you resist. Instead of letting the experience pass through, you suppress it. You push it down into your mind and emotions. This is something people have known about for thousands of years. Yogis saw it and meditated to deal with it. Freud, the famous psychologist, studied suppression and its effects. He looked at what happens when you shove an experience down instead of letting it pass. Where does it go? It doesn't disappear. It stays inside you. It sits in the energy of your mind, in your emotions, in your heart. And over time, it builds up. You know this is true because suppressed memories or feelings often resurface. They might come up in your dreams, or when someone mentions a name, or when you pass by a place that reminds you of the past. Think about it. You might still feel pain about something that happened years ago. Maybe it's the memory of someone stealing your boyfriend or girlfriend, or a time someone outperformed you at school or work. Those feelings didn't just vanish. They're still in you because you held on to them instead of letting them go. Here's the crazy part. The actual event is long gone. It might have happened 10, 20, or 30 years ago. None of the atoms from that event are the same anymore. The world has moved on, but you haven't. The memory and the emotions tied to it are still stored inside you. And that one suppressed event can start causing problems in your life. Let's say you had a bad experience with a snake years ago. If you didn't let that experience pass through you, you stored fear inside. Now, whenever you hear a rustling sound, see a rope on the ground, or even imagine a snake, that stored fear gets triggered. Do you see how this works? Your current experiences have to pass through your mind to reach you. But if your mind is filled with these stored reactions, everything gets distorted. Instead of seeing life clearly, you're seeing it through the lens of what's already stored inside. Yogis have a name for these stored impressions. They call them samskaras. These are the things you resisted and held on to. Most of the time, they're negative experiences, like fears or resentments. They stay buried inside, shaping how you see the world and react to it. The key to freedom is letting go. Instead of resisting life, you can let it flow through you. Let the good and the bad touch you deeply and then let them pass. That's how you stay free from the weight of stored experiences. That's how you can truly experience life as it is, fresh and beautiful in every moment. Let's say instead of a snake, it was something beautiful, like a butterfly. Imagine a butterfly gently flying around and landing on your arm while others were watching. It stayed there fluttering its wings, and it felt special, almost magical. You might think, wow, this is amazing. Do you see this? Now, because that moment felt so wonderful, you'd probably keep going back to that same place, hoping it might happen again, Years later, you'd still tell people about it, proudly calling yourself the butterfly whisperer. But here's the thing. After that experience, your life doesn't feel the same. You can't just move on. You feel like you need to live near that place, always trying to recreate that moment. Do you see what's happening here? That's the trap of chasing positive experiences. Positive moments can stick with us, just like negative ones, and they can mess with our peace of mind. Every time you have a great experience, a part of you wants it to happen again. The bigger the experience, the stronger the pull. And because of that, you're not living fully in the present. You're either chasing after something you loved or running away from something you didn't. Either way, you're not fully here in this moment. This is why you sometimes feel disappointment, even after something good. You wonder, will it ever happen again? It creates a cycle where you're always reaching for something or avoiding something, instead of just experiencing life as it comes. The truth is, we all do this. Every time we resist something, whether it's a bad driver, a tough situation, or even a happy memory, we push those feelings deep inside us. But those feelings don't just go away. They stay there, growing and multiplying, affecting how we live and react to life. Think about it. How many things have you buried like this? Little annoyances, big moments, happy memories, or painful ones. They all pile up. Maybe a driver irritated you once, so now you avoid that road altogether. Or you see a similar car and think, I'm not dealing with that again. Over time, this builds into a pattern where you're always trying to control what happens next. But in doing so, you create a mess inside. That's why it's so hard to just let go and live freely. When something happens in life, the best thing you can do is let it in, experience it fully, and embrace it. That's what it means to truly appreciate life and all of creation. It's like living in a beautiful garden where everything has its place, and you're at peace with it all. But instead of doing that, most of us cling to the things we like and push away the things we don't. Over time, this creates patterns in your mind, preferences for what you want, and aversions to what you don't. Think about it. You like some people, some animals, and certain situations. But then there are things you can't stand. Like mosquitoes, for example. How many preferences and dislikes are stored in your mind? It's like you've built an entire world inside yourself, full of judgments about what you like and what you avoid. Here's the big lesson. When you couldn't handle certain experiences, you stored them inside you. These experiences didn't just pass through you like they should have. Instead, you held on to them, whether it was something so good you wanted it to happen again, or something so bad you never wanted it near you again. And because you couldn't let it go, it's still inside you, affecting how you live. Now, you spend your life trying to control everything around you. You want to keep the things you dislike far away, and you want to make sure the things you love keep happening. This need for control takes over, and you devote your energy to managing life so it fits your preferences. In doing so, you're living from the part of yourself that couldn't handle reality in the first place, the part that didn't let the experience just pass through. Here's the thing. Most of your experiences come and go without leaving a mark. They pass right through you, and you don't hold on to them. For example, when you walk outside, you see the sky, hear the birds, feel the wind, and it's all fine. It just flows through you. But when something really intense happens, something you can't handle, it gets stuck. Over time, these unresolved experiences pile up in your mind. They don't feel good because they were never comfortable to begin with. If you stored something painful, when it resurfaces, it's going to feel painful again. That's just how it works. You're re-experiencing the pain you didn't let go of. Therapists like Freud understood this, and it's why we talk about the importance of dealing with unresolved feelings. So what's the solution? Start letting life flow through you. Stop holding on to every good or bad experience. The more you let go, the more you can live in the present without being weighed down by the past. Why does it work this way? Because if it didn't, you wouldn't be storing things anymore. Let's say something hurt you yesterday, but now you claim it doesn't hurt anymore. Does that mean you've let it go? Probably not. If it still bothers you deep down, it's because you stored the pain itself. Not just the memory of it, but the actual energy of the pain. Now think about all the pain and discomfort you've stored over the years. It piles up in your mind, cluttering it like garbage. And because of that, you become extra sensitive to what's happening around you. Anything new that comes into your life has the potential to trigger those old feelings. This is why you work so hard to control what people say and do around you. You want them to act a certain way so they don't stir up those buried emotions. If someone says something you don't like, you feel hurt or offended. Then you expect them to apologize, right? But why? It's because you couldn't handle what they said. And you think it's their responsibility to fix how you feel. Maybe they apologize and maybe they try to make things better, but does that mean you've let it go? Not really. This is how we live our lives, carrying around all this unresolved pain. Instead of letting experiences flow through us and letting them go, we hold on to them. And the more we hold on to, the more our present is colored by the past. That's why it's so important to truly let go. Not just cope, not just forgive, but actually release the energy of the pain itself. Otherwise, it keeps coming back, over and over again. Letting go isn't as easy as it sounds, is it? Why? Because you're afraid of the things you've stored. The pain, the fear, the insecurities. Over time, life starts to feel heavier and more complicated. So what do? Without even realizing it, you slowly build something to deal with all of it. A self-concept, or what we often call the ego. Now, let's get clear on what this ego really is. It's not some mystical or physical thing. It's a creation of your mind. Freud explained it as part of your mental structure, along with the id and superego. The ego is just thought patterns in your mind. It's a collection of ideas you've built about who you think you are. Your ego is made up of thoughts like, I like this, I don't like that. I'm comfortable with this. I'm afraid of that. Notice the common thread. It's all about I. These are just thoughts. But over time, you've stored so many of them that they feel real. Here's how it happens. Every painful experience you've stored is like a brick. Slowly, you use those bricks to build a mental house. Psychology calls this your self-concept, the image you've created in your mind of who you are. But here's the truth. It's something you made up. It's not who you really are. Think about it. Have you ever begged someone not to leave you by saying, I can change? Just tell me what you want me to be. What are you really saying there? You're admitting that the version of you isn't fixed. It's something you can modify. You might even think, if I made up who I was before, I can just make up a new version now. But that's the point. It's all made up. Your ego is just a collection of patterns you've set up in your mind based on your experiences and how you reacted to them. It's not real. It's a mental construct. And here's where it gets even more interesting. This self-concept isn't even consistent. You shift it depending on the situation. For example, the you that hangs out with your best friends might be completely different from the you that interacts with your parents. Some people even talk about having an alter ego or different sides to their personality. That's because the ego is flexible. It changes based on what you think you need in a given moment. The problem is, as long as you're living through this made-up self-concept, you're not really free. You're constantly shaping and reshaping yourself to fit what you think will make life feel safer or better. And all of it, the pain you've stored, the mental patterns you've built, is keeping you from experiencing life as it really is. Basically, we all create different versions of ourselves based on what we think we need to be. These versions are made up of ideas and beliefs we've built about who we are. For example, maybe you've spent years living a quiet, controlled life. Let's call it the librarian life. But over time, it starts to feel like you're trapped or suffocating. Eventually, something inside you snaps. You've been holding yourself back for so long that you can't take it anymore. And you decide to run away from everything. Your family, your responsibilities, your entire way of life. This happens to people more often than we realize. Why? Because they've been suppressing parts of themselves for years. They push down feelings, desires, and emotions they don't know how to deal with. At first, it might feel manageable. You shove it down, pretending it's not there, and go on with life. But over time, all that suppressed energy builds up. It doesn't go away. It just sits there, waiting. Eventually, something triggers it. Maybe you meet someone who stirs up emotions you've buried. Maybe someone says something that cuts deep. Or maybe nothing obvious happens. But one day you just can't keep everything bottled up anymore. Suddenly, it feels like you can't handle yourself. You start acting out, maybe drinking, picking fights, or doing things you wouldn't normally do. It's like a dam bursting. Everything you've been holding back comes rushing out. What's really going on here? It's that you've built a mental model of yourself, a version of you that you've convinced yourself is real. But it's not. This version of you is just a collection of thoughts and beliefs about who you think you are. Deep down, you're not this made-up version of yourself. You're something else entirely. Here's the key question. Who are you really? You're the one who notices everything. You're the one who sees what's happening inside. Think about it. Do you have thoughts? Of course you do. But how do you know you're having them? It's because you're the one who's aware of them. That's the most important realization you can have in your entire life. You are the one who notices. You're not your ego, because you can watch your ego in action. Don't you notice when you feel pride, or embarrassment, or fear? Don't you catch yourself thinking things like, if I say this, people will be impressed with me, or I hope I get what I want? All of that is your ego, just thoughts and emotions, and you're the one observing it all. This is the deeper truth, the you that you think you are, the one trying to impress people, the one trying to protect yourself, the one with all these made-up roles, isn't the real you. The real you is the one watching, the one who sees all of this happening. When you finally realize this, everything changes. You don't have to stay trapped in the version of yourself you've created. You can step back, let go, and start living as the real you, the one who's simply aware. That's where true freedom begins. Who is it that knows what's happening right now? How do you know you're sitting here reading this? It's because you're the one who's aware of it. You're the consciousness, the witness, the observer, the self, the Atman. You're not the thoughts in your mind. You're the one watching those thoughts as they come and go. But here's the tricky part. We've become so addicted to our thoughts that we let them run the show. Instead of just noticing them, we act on them without question. If your mind says, "I don't feel comfortable here, let's leave," you leave. Whatever your mind says, you tend to follow, right? Let's be honest about how this works. But here's the real question. Who's the one noticing all this? Who's aware of the thoughts, the feelings, the wants, and the discomforts? That's called the witness consciousness. And the witness is the most profound, pure, and powerful part of you. It's the highest thing in existence. Think about it like this. When light shines on something, it doesn't get dirty just because it's illuminating something messy. In the same way, your consciousness doesn't get tainted by what it observes. It remains pure no matter what's happening. It's always just witnessing, experiencing, and being aware. So, why does life feel so messy sometimes? It's because instead of letting experiences pass through you, you hold on to them. You push away what you don't like and cling to what you do like. Over time, all this holding on creates a cluttered, chaotic space inside your mind. And because living in that mental chaos is hard, you build something to help you cope, a self-image, or what we call the ego. The ego isn't good or bad. It's just your mind's way of trying to make life feel more manageable. It says, if I get what I want, I'll feel good. If I don't, I'll feel bad. If I get something I don't want, I'll feel even worse. This becomes the basic rule of life for most people. Avoid what hurts and chase what feels good. But here's the thing. When you start to wake up, you notice what's really going on. You realize you're not your ego. You're the one inside watching all of this. That's the first step of awakening. Seeing that you've built this self in your mind, this ego that's constantly scheming, manipulating, and reacting. The ego is like a little monster you've created. It throws tantrums when it doesn't get its way. It lies. It makes excuses. And it does whatever it takes to feel okay. It's always changing, molding itself to fit what it thinks will get it what it wants. Sometimes it's charming, sometimes it's defensive, sometimes it's a victim. Whatever works in the moment. In today's world, the ego is everywhere. It's loud, it's competitive, and it's always trying to prove something. But inside yourself, you have the power to see it for what it is. And when you do, you realize that the ego isn't some mysterious or external force. It's made of the very things you've been holding on to. The ego isn't built from the clouds in the sky, the strangers you pass on the street, or the 99.99% of life that you simply let flow through. It's built from the small percentage of experiences that you didn't let go of, the pain, the fear, the desires, the insecurities. That's the raw material of the ego. Over time, you've used that material to create a person in your mind, a version of yourself that you present to the world. This mental construct says, I'll show this version of myself so people will like me, or I'll hide so I don't get hurt. But no matter how convincing this mask is, it's not the real you. Yogananda, a great spiritual teacher, once called the ego the masquerading self. That's exactly what it is. A mask you've built to interact with the world. And the funny thing is, you can change this mask whenever you want. You can adjust it to fit different situations, to get what you want or avoid what you fear. But underneath the mask, the real you, the one who notices, the one who is simply aware, is still there. That's the part of you that's pure, untouched, and always present. When you start to see this clearly, you realize you don't need the mask at all. You can live as your true self, free from the clutter and chaos of the ego. And that's when life truly begins. What you really want deep down is to feel okay inside. You want peace, contentment, and happiness. But instead of finding that peace within yourself, you rely on your ego to try and create it for you. So what do? You keep changing your ego, adjusting, rationalizing, justifying, lying, and even manipulating, just to make yourself feel okay. But at some point, if you're lucky, you wake up and realize, this isn't working. It's never going to work. Why? Because living this way means you're constantly struggling, fighting against every moment as it comes. But it's not just the present you're battling. You're also fighting with the past and the future. Think about it. The past bothers you because it didn't go the way you wanted. So you can't let it go. The present bothers you because it's not always what you want it to be. So you resist it. And the future, that bothers you too, because you're projecting all kinds of fears and desires onto it. You imagine things you don't want happening, and you worry about how to avoid them. Or you picture things you do want, and you stress about how to make them happen. Doesn't that sound exhausting? Worrying about the future doesn't even make sense. The future hasn't happened yet. How can you fight something that doesn't exist? And yet, you do. You carry all the unresolved baggage from your past and project it into your future. You think, what if that painful thing happens again? How can I stop it? What if I don't get what I want? And that's where all the worry and anxiety come from. It's not just about what's happening now. It's about your whole life, past and future. You wake up in the morning, and instead of feeling refreshed, it's like this tidal wave of stress and responsibility hits you. You think, I can't handle this anymore. Why? Because you've taken on an impossible job, trying to control everything and everyone around you so that your ego feels okay. You've decided, if life happens the way I want, I'll be fine. But if it doesn't, I won't be okay. And now, every little thing in the outside world feels like it has the power to disturb your peace. You've built this invisible rule inside yourself. The outside world determines how I feel inside. But here's the catch. You only want the outside to affect you if it's exactly the way you like. So, you spend your energy trying to manipulate everything around you to fit your preferences. You want people to behave a certain way, situations to go your way, and life to unfold according to your script. But life doesn't work that way. People don't always act how you want. Situations don't always go as planned. And when the outside world doesn't match your expectations, you feel upset, anxious, or frustrated. The truth is, you've handed over control of your inner peace to the external world, which is completely unpredictable and out of your control. This constant resistance, fighting with what's happening now, what happened in the past, and what might happen in the future, is why life feels so hard. You've set yourself up to lose because the world will never perfectly align with your ego's demands. So, what's the solution? The first step is to see the truth. The outside doesn't have to control your inside. You've been living as though it does. But that's a choice, not a fact. The real work is learning to let go of this belief, to stop resisting reality, and to allow life to flow through you without needing to control it. When you do this, you'll find that peace and contentment don't come from the outside. They come from letting go of the struggle inside. And when you let go, the world doesn't have to be perfect anymore. It can just be what it is, and you can finally be okay. Here's what happens. When you're stuck in this pattern, you try to control everything around you so it doesn't make you feel worse. You manipulate the outside world to protect yourself from discomfort. But here's the truth. Truly great beings, the ones who have found peace, don't live like that. Instead, they take a deep, honest look inside and say, "Wow, look at all the stuff I've been carrying around in my mind. I'm not even seeing the world as it is. I'm just seeing a reflection of my own thoughts, emotions, and past experiences." While it's true that the outside world affects your inner thoughts, the opposite is also true. What's inside of you gets projected out. You're not really seeing the world. You're seeing your interpretation of it. Even if part of what you experience is real, your mind twists and reshapes it, filtering it through your own biases and past experiences. You're not interacting with reality. You're dancing with your own mind. That's why yogis and spiritual teachers emphasize meditation and self-awareness. They encourage you to work on clearing the clutter inside, because most of what you call reality is just a creation of your mind. And when you let go of these projections, something amazing happens. You start to see things as they really are. A thought is just a thought. An emotion is just an emotion. They no longer control you. And when you stop judging everything as good or bad, something even more beautiful emerges inside of you. A sense of joy, peace, and awe for the world. You begin to appreciate the incredible dance of life happening both inside and outside of you. In this state, you're not trapped by your likes and dislikes. You're not constantly fighting with reality. Instead, you're in harmony with it. You see the beauty in everything. The clouds, your thoughts, your emotions, the people around you. And inside, you feel a deep sense of bliss, simply because you've stopped resisting and started living in the flow of life. It's hard for people to grasp this idea because we think, I want to like some things and dislike others. If I get what I like, I feel happy. If I avoid what I dislike, I feel happy too. So, why would I give that up? But here's the thing. What you call feeling better is like a child playing with toys. It's small and fleeting. You're capable of so much more. You are naturally filled with joy, peace, and greatness all the time. You are the highest being to ever walk the earth. But you're blocking this truth by focusing on your mind and emotions, which aren't your true self. When the outside world happens to align with what you want, your mind and emotions might relax for a moment. You feel a tiny glimpse of openness, but it's only because you've stopped resisting. That little feeling is nothing compared to what you truly are. You're made of love, pure and boundless, but you only feel it when everything outside lines up just right. Someone says the perfect thing, looks the way you want, or behaves how you expect. You rely on the outside world to let you feel what's already inside you. People often ask, how do I open my heart? How do I experience this? And the answer is simple. Don't close. You don't need to do anything extra. If you stop closing yourself off, you'll naturally be open. Think of a dark room. You want light? Open the blinds. That's it. The sunlight will pour in on its own. But if you refuse to open the blinds, it stays dark. The same goes for your heart. When you close your heart, you trap yourself in negativity. You get stuck watching your own closed-off feelings and a restless mind, and neither is pleasant. Then, you depend on the world around you to fix what's inside you. The truth is, you don't need the world to align perfectly to feel free and open. Stop closing yourself off, and your natural state of peace and love will shine through, just like the sun does when you open the blinds. Here's what I've learned. The best thing you can do is simply notice. Pay attention to what's happening without trying to control it. Observe your feelings, your thoughts, and your reactions. This doesn't mean you should give up on relationships or avoid making big decisions. Go ahead. Get married if you want to. Get divorced if it doesn't work out. Each experience, good or bad, teaches you something. There's nothing wrong with living your life. What really matters is that you keep watching. The more you live and pay attention, the more you'll realize that the things you're so attached to, your emotions, your thoughts, your past, don't have as much power over you as they used to. Life, through relationships, successes, failures, births, deaths, and everything in between, teaches you this. Earth is like a school for the soul, a place where we come to grow and evolve. You'll eventually see that the things you chase, whether it's love, success, or happiness, aren't the real answers. They're like the sirens in mythology, luring you in with promises they can't deliver. Why? Because the truth was never out there. You were projecting your own ideas onto those things, creating illusions of what they could be. That person you trusted, they weren't who you thought they were. And that dream job you landed, turns out it wasn't what you thought either. Maybe you said, "This is perfect. I finally got a woman boss. It's going to be amazing." And for a while, it was. But then she got fired yesterday. And now some egotistical guy who doesn't respect women is in charge. Suddenly, it's a nightmare. Here's the hard truth. Life doesn't work the way we want it to, because it is what it is. People, jobs, situations. They're all just a result of everything that's shaped them. They're the sum of all their experiences, just like you're the sum of yours. Even science tells us this. Everything is a result of cause and effect. Things are the way they are because of all the forces and circumstances that came together to make them that way. It's not personal, it's just reality. So no, life isn't always going to match your expectations. And that's okay. If you're paying attention, you'll start to grow and mature. You'll realize that fighting against what's happening only creates frustration. Instead, you can start to simply watch, to observe, to learn. And then, a shift happens. You stop trying to force life to be what you want it to be, and you begin to ask yourself, what if I could appreciate life as it is? What if, instead of trying to shape every moment to fit me, I let the moment shape me? What if I respected and honored what's happening, no matter what? Life isn't about bending the world to match your expectations. It's about learning to embrace what comes, even when it's not what you wanted. When you stop resisting and start accepting, you'll find a deeper sense of peace and freedom. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Let the moment come to you, and let it teach you what you need to know. You think life is supposed to go a certain way, your way, but that's not how it works. Life is supposed to go the way it is, now. That doesn't mean everything that happens is good or moral in some universal sense. It doesn't mean things can't or shouldn't change. But if something happened, it happened because everything leading up to that moment made it happen. That's reality, Here's where it gets tricky. You step into that moment with all your expectations, judgments, and preferences, and say, I don't like this. And then what happens? You suffer, not because of the event itself, but because of your reaction to it. Take being cold, for example. You don't suffer because it's cold. You suffer because you don't like being cold. If you actually enjoyed the cold, you'd be out there having the time of your life. The cold didn't change, you did. And that's the essence of spirituality and the whole journey of self-discovery. It's not about changing the world to match your preferences. It's about changing yourself, to accept and appreciate what's happening. There's a beautiful quote from Rumi that sums this up. Yesterday, I was clever, so I was trying to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. This doesn't mean you're supposed to change. It doesn't mean you'll be punished if you don't. It simply means you wake up to the truth. It's not just the outside event causing your happiness or unhappiness. It's your inner reaction to it. If you like what's happening, you're happy. If you don't, you're not. Here's the thing. Your likes and dislikes, they're not set in stone. They're just habits of thought, built from your past experiences. They're not as real as you think. Imagine how much easier life would be if you liked more things. Think about it. You go to dinner, and the food portion is too small. The waiter messes up your order, or someone's smoking nearby. Most people would say, "This ruined my evening." But did it really? Number. It's not the small portion or the smoke that ruined your dinner. You ruined your dinner by letting your preferences, the little rules you've made up in your mind, take control. Here's the challenge. What if you let go of those preferences? What if you decided to just enjoy the moment as it is, without needing it to be perfect? That's where freedom starts. Not in controlling the outside world, but in freeing yourself from the grip of your own mind. Imagine you're in a situation where someone is smoking and you feel uncomfortable. You might think, well, maybe smoking helps this guy deal with his nerves. I guess I can tolerate it. But here's the thing, you don't have to just tolerate it. Don't let things like this ruin your peace or your life. Instead, manage the situation calmly. You could approach the maitre d' or someone in charge and politely ask, I thought this was a no-smoking area. Is smoking allowed here? You're not yelling or being confrontational. You're simply addressing it. When you speak up, it shouldn't come from a place of, I'm upset and I can't handle this. Instead, it should come from a place of strength, like, I can handle this, but I'm bringing it up because it might help others too. There's a big difference between acting out of frustration and acting out of care or fairness. Here's the key. Don't live your life trying to change everything around you so you can feel okay. If you do, you're setting yourself up for a tough time because life is unpredictable and people won't always do what you want. Instead, work on yourself. Build a mindset where you're strong and steady no matter what happens. How do you do that? The answer lies in letting go. We often hold on to things, memories, frustrations, fears, or even small annoyances from our daily lives. This stuff piles up inside us, and over time, it weighs us down. The goal is to stop storing all of that negativity. Here's how it works. If you stop adding new negativity to your inner storage, the old stuff will start to rise to the surface. It comes up because it doesn't belong in you anymore. It's blocking your happiness and peace. When those old emotions or memories come up, don't push them back down. Don't fight them. Just notice them and let them go. Think of it like clearing out a closet. When you stop shoving more junk in, the old clutter starts to come out, and you can finally clean it up. If you need help letting go, a therapist can be a great tool. But the real work happens when you decide you don't want to carry all that baggage anymore. You don't need to hold on to pain from the past, whether it's from high school, a lost loved one, or something small like a rainy day that annoyed you. Let it go. When you relax, release, and stop storing new negativity, life becomes lighter. You'll feel more present, more alive, and more real. So take a deep breath, let go of what's bothering you today, and welcome the old stuff as it rises. Then let that go too. It's a process, but it's worth it. Keep clearing space for peace and happiness, and you'll find life becomes a lot easier to handle. This process is called purification. It's about clearing out the things you've held on to that block you from feeling the natural energy flowing through you. What kind of energy? Some call it Shakti, Chai, Spirit. It doesn't matter what name you use. It's the life force, the same energy that made the Garden of Eden so perfect and alive. This energy is your natural state, a state of pure, conscious joy. It's always been there, and it's meant to flow freely. So, why don't you feel it right now? Because over time, you've piled layers of emotions, fears, and thoughts on top of it. Imagine damming up a river. The water can't flow when it's blocked, and that's what we do to this energy inside us. As you let go of these blocks, little by little, you'll start to feel that energy again. At first, it might feel subtle, but over time, it becomes undeniable. You'll feel joy for no reason at all. You might walk outside, and suddenly, the sound of a bird singing will move you so deeply that it touches the core of your being. Everything will start to feel more vibrant, more alive, because you're no longer blocking yourself from experiencing life fully. This is what happens when you stop controlling everything. When you stop filtering the world based on what your mind thinks you want or don't want. You're not letting your mind dictate how you experience life anymore. This process, this letting go, is what spiritual growth is all about. It's the journey of discovering who you really are underneath all those layers. Ask yourself, who are you? What's your relationship with yourself? What's your connection to the world around you? And why does the outside world affect you so deeply inside? When you start letting go of the things that don't serve you, the fears, the doubts, the need to control, everything begins to shift. Life opens up. You reconnect with that flow of energy, and you discover that your natural state is joy, peace, and a deep sense of being alive. This isn't something you chase or force. It's something you allow by releasing what's been blocking you. So keep letting go, and you'll find that everything, inside and out, changes for the better. Thank you for listening,